Hi again guys, and welcome to yet another returning face to the world of Gran Turismo Sport, another car which alongside the RX-7 and the R34 Skyline has of course been requested multiple times for me to review, and also in a more direct way than many of the cars which are new to the game, compare it to Gran Turismo's past, because unlike a lot of the newer models, such as the Ford Raptor for instance from the same pack, this is of course a returning vehicle, so we do have a benchmark to compare it to. And as in the case of the RX-7 and the R34, we have a very direct comparison to these vehicles because we do already have premium versions of the R32, the R34 and the RX-7 on GT6. And we have actually covered some of those in the Pick of the Pack series, where we look through basically all of the unnecessary versions of those cars. And 9 times out of 10 you find that the premium version is fairly obviously the best one overall to buy. But the interesting thing is about these returning JDM cars is that in all 3 cases so far, the pricing is exactly the same as on GT6. The RX-7, the R34 and now the R32 all cost exactly the same as they did back then. I personally think that's pretty cool, because usually on a newer version of a game, even within a franchise, prices change, sometimes quite drastically. And of course prices have changed, not just in the past on Gran Turismo, but even on GT Sport. The Cobra, for instance, is quite a bit more expensive now than it was on Gran Turismo 6. It's roughly 4 times the price, which some people have understandably thought was a bit over the top. It's understandable because it's an iconic classic, but still, it is a lot of cash. This one though is, as I said, exactly the same, just under 53 grand, which is exactly the same as the premium version on GT6. But, as with all of the cars on this game compared to their GT6 equivalents, it's not quite as powerful, and it's a little bit heavier as well. Now when you fully tune this car, it does still put out over 800 horsepower, and it's not that far off what it had on Gran Turismo 6. It was 840 on there, it's a little bit less on here, likewise with the R34 as well. That one's got around, I think it's 913 horsepower now, compared to 964 on Gran Turismo 6. So there is a difference, to be sure, and it would be nice, obviously, to have that same level of power, but still, even without it, and also even if we only had the option of an oil change, that could get you pretty close to those numbers, so who knows if that could make all the difference. However, in terms of how this car performs, I'm very, very happy to report that even though I'm not a fan, in particular of the R32, I love the R34, and I do really love the R33, contrary to what some people seem to think about what I was saying about the R34, I don't dislike that car at all. I've just found it to be not as fun as many other JDM cars. However, with the R33, which I do really hope that they include on the game, and I think they probably will down the line, that is my favourite Skyline because I love the look of it. It's a little bit more nose heavy than some of the others, and I love the balance of the steering. A lot of people though really love the R32 because it's arguably, and I would agree with this, the most hardcore of the newer-ish generation Skylines. Everything from the R32 onward, but really even if you include the R30 and the R31, the R32 is still more hardcore than they are, because unlike the 30 and 31 it has the advantage of all-wheel drive, but it's lighter than the R33 and R34. So it's a good middle ground between generations really. The R32, it's got a hardcore appearance, it looks like a no-nonsense track day special, and that's pretty much exactly what it is. So although I'm not a super fan of the car, it's probably my least favourite Skyline actually, in terms of generations, I can still certainly see why people do love it so much. In a similar way to the Supra, I'm not a huge fan of that, but I totally get why people love it so much. So in terms of how this one performs, as I alluded to earlier before I got a little bit sidetracked, this, in the exact same way as the R34, is a car which I can safely say and give my stamp of approval, at least so far, and of course they do change physics with new updates sometimes, but so far this handles and feels better and more authentic in terms of its handling and its performance and its look and its sound than it ever has before in the world of Gran Turismo. And of course you would want that to be the case because this is the newest game. So obviously you'd want it to be the best, but as we've seen before, such as with Gran Turismo 6 as a whole, just being the newest doesn't necessarily make it the best. There are plenty of ways that Gran Turismo 6 did not meet people's expectations, whereas with GT Sport, in particular with regard to this car, it definitely does. If you are an R32 fan and you haven't played it yet on the game, haven't driven it yet, or maybe haven't fully tuned it yet, I would strongly recommend that you give that a try. Even if you don't fully tune it, just give it a try in general, because just like the R34, and to some degree the RX-7 as well, but I've personally found even more so with these two Skylines, the driving feedback and the driving manners and the way the suspension moves and the tyres move and the way the car feels and sounds, it really does, at least to me, feel so much more authentic than it ever has before. They feel fantastic through corners, and to be honest, the R32 on Gran Turismo 6 is also a Skyline that I'm not a huge fan of around corners, because although it's not bad, not even close, I just don't like the handling as much. Sometimes it feels almost like it has a bit too much grip, which gives it heavy steering. Now, that's not really the case. You can quite easily get the tail out if you want to, but at the same time, it doesn't do that if you don't want it to. It's got a very, very high level of driver control, and I would say that this game has certainly, even in the short time that I've driven the R32 on here so far, given me more of an appreciation for why certain people love the car. And I should think that for those who are super fans of cars like this, you're probably pretty happy so far if you have driven it on the game, because it feels fantastic. It also, in fully tuned form in particular, sounds fantastic. I haven't actually straight up compared the two, but I think this one might even sound better than the R34. So yeah, it's a pretty nice overall package, it's a nice update, and as I'm sure you guys can see from this video, there are definitely certain cars, at least as far as I'm concerned, that look hyper-realistic in Gran Turismo Sport. And I would say this is one of those cars. The way it takes corners looks like a real car. And that, I think, is awesome, and that only adds to the authentic feel that the car has. It's a whole lot of fun to drive, and yeah, definitely check it out. But that's it for this pick overall. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.